Hello, you Marshall Maltineers. It's a malt mention now. So, you have arrived in the bothy. Obviously, I'm Ralphie. Welcome. And this is, of course, a whisky review. And this is Ralphie Review 1021. Yep, they're all adding up. And of course, finally, before I get started with this whisky, I need to give a malt mention credit to GC Brain 2933 for providing the malt mention. So, hello everybody, all you whisky curious, malt moment adventurers, and Pat Pals for all the folk who subscribe to my Patreon channel. I have a whisky to review for you, which is a rarity for me. It's a Japanese whisky, and I have some history with this particular brand. It's called Yoichi Single Malt Whisky Distillery in Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, just to the west of the city of Sapporo, famous for its beer making. And this is a non-age statement single malt from one of Japan's oldest distilleries. I first encountered Yoichi when I was exploring the increasing options available in the British market back in the early 2000s. In fact, I reviewed fairly early on in this channel in review number 45, it's a long time ago, the 10-year-old Yoichi in April 2009. Right, that shows you how long ago it is. And then a few years later, I also reviewed in Ralphie Review 304 the 15-year-old version, which was so good, in my opinion, but I bought several bottles of it and kept them in my stash until I sold them for seriously more money in order to buy another barrel of Scotch whisky. So sometimes when we're flipping, right, and I've done it, sometimes I do it, I'm doing it for a reason. I'd have loved to have opened and enjoyed those 15-year-old Yoichi bottlings. I had two of them, but I didn't, because I'd already tried it, and the money I was getting back from them at auction, really, it contributed significantly to actually buying a barrel of Glencadam, a bourbon cask of Glencadam single malt. Now, what would you do in my position? Ideally, it would be best of both worlds. Keep the Japanese whisky, get your barrel of Scotch whisky, and don't heat the house. I've poured a wee dram of this Yoichi. This is the non-age statement. The narrative goes that they used to have older versions of Yoichi, but they didn't have enough stock. They couldn't meet the surging demand for Japanese whisky, despite putting the prices up considerably, and therefore this is what's available now. This cost me £77, this bottle. It is bottled at 45%. And in my opinion, right, it's my opinion, no caramel colourant has been added to this whisky. How refreshing, how reassuring that they don't feel the need, unlike some Scotch whisky distilleries and other distilleries around the world. It's not just Scotch single malt makers now, it's global, to add E150A. There you go. I even struggled to say it. It's just it's such a negative connection now with quality spirits. And yet it persists. Something else I want to add is that I've been looking, as I've been exploring this bottle, I've been looking for some Japanese mist, Japanese Hokkaido mist, and I'm not seeing a lot. This tells me that this is a chill filtered product. If it's not chill filtered, it is extensively filtered. I want to say, for the record, I find that very disappointing. Very disappointing. Considering that, and I'm going to tell you a wee bit more about the distillery, give you some insight, because the insight into the distillery explains the experience in the glass. So let's start with a nose and a taste. Rich, soft, complex cereal grain, very biscuity, ripe biscuity. Immediately you're noticing on the nose the benefits of direct firing your stills. And at Yuichi, it's the wash stills that are direct fired. A similar situation as you find in Springbank in Campbelltown, because direct firing really makes not just a nominal tiny little difference, it makes a huge difference. It makes or breaks a long-term, long-distance reputation of a brand, which makes it bizarre that it has been discontinued in so many Scotch single malt distilleries, because they're looking for inefficiencies, when in fact the whole point of buying it is for the inefficiency of production, the skill of the inefficiency, rather than imposing efficiencies. With Yuichi, it is, when you go out into beyond Scotland, it is one of the most, still the most authentically delivered, relatively speaking, similar styles of whisky to Scotch. First taste, big sweet and sour. Beautifully distilled. Fresh autumnal apples. Little bit of peat reek in there. Delightfully clear, expressive, articulate, crisp, good intensity of the sensation range. Lovely balance within the sensations, the sweet, the sour, and importantly, accompanying the sour, giving it weight, giving it substance, is that bitterness. I'm also noticing, in first taste, a little bit of a maritime note, saltiness. It's not so much nautical marine salt. It's more a soft ambient rock salt. I'm going to add 5 millilitres of water. Let's see where this takes us. Give it a couple of minutes. When you're drinking this whisky, let me give you advice. Go onto your computer, because you won't find it anywhere else. You've got to go onto your computer and look at videos that show Yuichi Distillery. Look at the information officially on the Yuichi website, in which they spend a lot of time focusing on the fact that they direct fire the stills, and you've got to kind of deep dive slightly, which I'm going to do actually in my next video, Ralphie Review 1021 Extras. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into Yuichi, give my personal overview here in 2024. Because I have a very mixed relationship with Japanese whisky, and many of you already know why, but I'm going to update you on this, and I'm going to articulate it even further. I've added water. Now I'm looking for a little bit of Japanese Hokkaido mist, a bit of Yuichi mist. I'm not seeing it. Even in the flavour, I can tell the rich oiliness that you get from direct firing and from using worm tubs for cooling, right? Because there's 6 stills at Yuichi. All 5 of the stills use worm tubs for cooling. Only 1 is using a cooling sleeve, right? It's just the wash stills which are direct fired. When they are using the coal, which they still do, they fine powder the coal so as to even the consistency of heat generation through the process. You could mechanise it so that you have a conveyor system of combustion, which would even things out underneath the still even further. But that's technology which just simply doesn't exist yet in whisky production, although it exists in other industrial processes. Let's go back to this whisky. This is nostalgic for me, maltmates. I was relatively early in Japanese whisky. I used to follow, when whisky was sold on eBay in the UK, which is a long time ago, I used to see these novelty bottles, almost manga bottles of whisky from Japan appearing and getting scooped up in increasingly high prices. You know, you had these 1970s, 1980s brands of whisky when there was very little demand for it, because Japanese drinkers were looking for Scotch whisky. That's where the demand was. So you'd see these ninja bottlings, these samurai bottlings appear in these fine artistic glass bottles, novelty bottlings, which are now highly prized collector's items. And when I was looking at Japanese whisky specifically, I found a few of them really quite generic, to be honest, overproduced, over-sanitized. There was two brands that really jumped out at me as being authentic and substantial. One was Hokushu, and the other was Yoichi. The 10-year-old was excellent because I knew it had older whisky in it. The 15-year-old was just superb. It was one of the finest whiskies I'd encountered. And then I had an inkling as to why, and now I've got a much bigger picture because time's moved on, my experience has grown more, and what I had an instinct for in the early days, now I can articulate more rationally. Let's have a little bit more of this whisky. What age would I put this at? I'd put this at 8, 9, even 10 years old. I'd say there's younger whisky here topped up with older whisky. So it's predominantly younger whisky, 6, 7, 8, very cleanly made, very articulate, very specific, very carefully done. It shows, it really does. The people working at this distillery really, really know what they're doing. The cleanliness in the nose, there again, being Japanese whisky, it's risk averse. It's inclined to be what you call fine origami style of production. Can I say that? I'm saying this to non-Japanese people so they've got a point of reference. It is the super attentive, almost obsessive attention to precision and the imposition of that precision and cutting out Mother Nature's influence, subduing and suppressing Mother Nature's influence. They could dig deeper into the faints. They could speed up the stills slightly. This distillery actually produces a lot of variety of spirit. They have very long fermentations. They use different grains. We hear very little in the Northern Europe, because I'm in Northern Europe rather than Western Europe. We hear very little about what actually really goes on there. But there is a lot of I wouldn't call it innovation. There's a lot of experimentation. Taste. We're getting a little hint of mist coming in now. Little hint. But really not enough. I'm going to add more water shortly. Crisp. Clean. Bit more than sweetness in the arrival. Nutty. Lovely little macadamia. Soft almond nuts. Apple, there's this distinctive apple note, slight banana in the background, hints of apricot along with a banana. Very understated, sweet and sour ginger note that you would find in what's called golden ginger in some sushi dishes. This obviously will go really well with sushi because there's that maritime note. Yuichi Distillery is very near the coastline. There's a river runs north straight into the sea. The distillery is only a few miles away from the sea itself. So essentially I would call this a maritime or coastal style of whiskey, although it never gets presented as such. And it's clean, soft. The finish could be longer. It should be longer, but it's been chill filtered. I'm telling you, I don't understand it. I just can't get my head round this. Why? I know what I'm tasting. I've got enough experience. We're going to have some more water. Surely there must be some little hint of mist. For goodness sake, Wormtub Cold, coal fire distill. If this was Springbank, you would clearly see the mist. Right, I'm looking for it. Now I've added some more water. It's just beginning to appear. Okay, credit where credit's due. The viscosity is a little bit more transparent on the second edition of water, but this has been filtered in some way. The barrier filtering has been too impactful. It needs to have less. You'd probably get that straight from the single cask versions, which, to be honest, would be horrendously expensive, outrageously expensive for any at all bespoke version of Nikka. This is the absolute basement presentation, but I'm going to make credit to them. See the screw tops? When you've got a screw top on your single malt whiskey, never be bothered by it, because it tells you a very important thing. And that is, you'll never find bits of cork floating in your whiskey after you open the bottle in years' time. You'll get that screw top off, no problem at all. And it will preserve the whiskey even more effectively than cork, particularly modern corks, which deteriorate more quickly than they used to be because they're softer than they used to be. You don't hear that very often. So, yeah, fair play now. I'm getting some mist. Finally getting a little bit of Yuichi mist. I'm very pleased to see this. I wasn't noticing it when I was at the fireside in a warmer environment, nosing and tasting this whiskey several times before I review it. But here in the much cooler environment of the bothy, I'm now starting to see it. And that is very, very reassuring to me. Although the cask influence has been very technical. So we're not really getting anything in the way of cask composition or cask oils or the cask density impacting in the whiskey. This is young whiskey. The cask hasn't time for the oils in the cask, for the flavours in the cask to come in. And this is why, to be honest, you're getting the fullness of the spirit signature, and it's very good. It really is world class. It stands toe to toe with any Scotch whiskey any day of the week. So a word of note to the new Scotch whiskey distilleries, the little distilleries. If you're not bottling at 46%, if you're not unchill filtered, get yourself a bottle of this and a bottle of Springbank and see what you have to try and achieve, and how easy it is for you to fail. This is a warning. I'm giving a warning here to Scotch whisky distilleries, because see Yuichi, there's other distilleries anywhere in the world, cool climate, replicating Scotch whisky production. They're going to produce whisky just as good, if not better, than many Scotch whiskies at the moment. And I'm saying this as a Scotsman. I don't want to be saying this. I shouldn't even have to be saying this. Scotch whisky distilleries, wake up. Just wake up. The global market is changing. People are far more educated. People know what they know far more than they used to. And this is a living example of how, and it's been around for a long time, of how when one particular country rests on its laurels, things can start to go wrong. And you see this with Japan, with Japanese whiskey production. I'm not talking about Yuichi. So mini rant time, just to remind you. You already know, but you do need to know this. There are other brands of Japanese whiskey who import whiskey from Canada and Scotland and other countries in the world. They store it in Japan and they brand it as Japanese whiskies. Is that decent? Is that honourable? That deviousness impacts all brands in Japan. As a matter of urgency for the protection of Japanese whiskey's reputation, there needs to be a state national law imposed with serious consequences for producing Japanese whiskey in Japan which is not Japanese. It should be illegal. Cheers. Kanpai. Soft mints, creamy citrus, grapefruit, soft grapefruit rind notes. High summer lemon, so soft lemon, subdued lemon, creamy lemon notes. The cereal creaminess is exquisite, delicate, and permeates this once it's had some water added. Very good indeed. The finish, light, lily, slightly floral, slightly hints, understated, complex. Apricot, soft peach, white peach, mild ginger, super soft tannins from a very restrained cask maturation process, and it's very good. I'm so delighted now here in the Bothy to see a little bit of mist in this. You need, if you're not seeing mist in your glass in a cold temperature, you have an inferior whiskey. Only the very best whiskies in the world. This is a sign of the quality. It's one of the signs, not all. It's not absolutely guaranteed, but it's definitely conclusive. Whatever the quality of whiskey is being better delivered. 86 out of 100. It's a very high mark. A non-age statement whiskey, but it's not just a young, immature whiskey at just an absurdly high price. This is important. It's Japanese. Job done. Finish my review. Pop back again for Ralphie Review 1021 Extras. Maltmates, I'm going to be going a bit more into this brand, into the history of it, giving you my personal take and giving you an overview. We'll take it from there. I mean, it's really the extras is only if you just want to know more about Japanese whiskey. If you're just buying because it's fashionable or because it's getting talked about in the forums, I mean, good luck to you. If you're looking to go gold digging for the next brand, which is going to become highly collectible after Springbank, you're too late with Yuichi, because anything old or anything sort of small volume from Yuichi is crazy high prices. So you've missed the boat there. There you have it. I'm Ralphie. Thanks for watching. See you soon.